That's why you gotta kill the shit to go crazy.
I did this video just a minute ago, but it was having some real bad reception. So we're going to go over this again, and hopefully I can do it quicker. I just kind of went into some other things last time, so give me a sec. Hopefully it's not lagging so bad where you can hear my voice. We can get this started. And we'll get into this account again. So Shalom to elect Israel, hopefully elect Israel, you Hebrew Israelites, you so-called Negro, Latinos, Native Americans, West Indians, Haitians, foreign Israelites alike to the nations scattered across the four corners of the earth. Want to give all praise to Barak, Barak, Yahawashi. Barak, Barak, Yahawashi. Got to give all praises to Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi, Bahasham, Rawchaa, Qadash, name of the Heavenly Father, who everybody ignorantly calls God. His true name in ancient Hebrew, which is in the last one, Qadash. His true name is Yahawah. Bahasham means in the name of Yahawashi, is the Holy One of Israel, everybody ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, so-called Negro from the tribe of Judah, who was slain at the foundations of the earth for the salvation of the elect of Israel. You got 2/3 of the wicked Israelites here in America Babylon the Great and the other wicked Israelites scattered across the four corners of the earth, that'll come back to the loins of the elect after the destruction. The Rawchaa, Qadash, the Holy Spirit has been bestowed upon the men. The Heavenly Father gave his only begotten Son out of the world to complete this work. So we always want to give double honors to the elders and apostles of the great millstone. Let us all to this truth. Been ordained by the Lord to teach the flock how to live, repent, pray, fast, show forth the Lord's righteousness and mercy, judgment, forgetting some Rawchaa are part of the elect to the hopeful elect. Lord, when we be part of that number, Lord, when it's be edifying us, we fear the name of the Lord, striving to show forth the Lord's righteousness every day to the best of our abilities. His judgment always comes to light. Zephaniah 3:5. It is not slack. 2 Peter 3:9 is unto a ring. 2 Edge chapter 5, verse 42. Shalom. Now you should say believers out there tuning in here on after Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi, Bahasham, Rawchaa, Qadash, Barak, Atham. Like I said, I just went into this account, but I went to go look at I always go and review my videos and make sure that everything came out right. And going into this lesson, it was lagging real bad. So we're going to go into it again. I'm about to go and delete this other one real quick. So, and I'm going to try to keep this a little bit more brief than the last one. I went into some extra topics, extra things. Let me see. But yeah, we're going to kind of start it off how we did last time. And the account is going into Bel and the Dragon. And basically, what we call plantation Christianity, which is, a lot of the scriptures were removed, from, the accounts of the Bible, as we kind of went through our slavery here in modern America, Babylon the Great, modern day Rome, the new Rome here. And so we're going to give you an account that gives you a better understanding of, why we use the Apocrypha, why we go into these things. Let me go take care of this one. Let me get rid of this one. Yeah. I'm gonna get rid of that. So anyways, going into it, we're gonna pull up again what we had earlier. Going into the Bible destruction group. Yeah, right here. We're going to read over this. We'll pull this up on my screen. We're going to read it in this to go into, showing you that some of these accounts was taken out of the scriptures. And these are one of these accounts, because, like the Christian churches, they won't give you that they won't give you that understanding that Daniel was he was cast in the lion's den twice, 2 different accounts. So we're gonna go into those accounts, and I went into a couple other things. This last lesson, I might not go into them as much unless the Spirit allows. The Spirit is like the wind. It comes and it goes. So Lord, when it's edifying to the flock. We'll get started right here. It says, if you own a King James Version Bible, the first and biggest change you will notice is that the original 1611 contains several extra books in an appendix between the Old and New Testaments called the books of the Apocrypha. Because when you go into, different accounts like Second Esdras, it kind of gave him a prophecy of the times that are going to happen right now. But there's other accounts that deal with certain things that the prophets went through that they kind of took out. So you couldn't really understand the history of the scriptures and why today you have so many people claiming that salvation is no longer something that's only applicable to Israelites. Okay, so we're going to go into that again, just like Daniel was thrown in the lion's den twice. We're going to redo this lesson and go in it again because we do the work. So it says this appendix includes several books which are found, and they say it's the Catholic Old Testament, but like we said, the Roman Catholic Church is the false prophet. So it's not talking about them. It's talking we're the ones who actually have the truth. So the Old Testament, such as the books of wisdom, which is talking about the wisdom of Solomon, the book of Sirach, which is talking about the book of Ecclesiasticus, Baruch, First and Second Maccabees, and others. And one of those others is Bel and the Dragon. We're going to go into that. And we're going to give you that account of what time that was around. But first, we're going to deal with the first account to show you that it's different than the first time that he was cast in the lion's den. So, and basically the lesson is just to show you that because the second time he was in the lion's den, he was in there a lot longer. So when the Lord tests you, you might pass your first test, and then the second test you got coming might be harder than the first one. But the Lord always took care of his people, man. But you are going to be tested to see if your faith is actually genuine and pure. Okay, that's why the Lord told Simon Peter that Satan desired to sift him as wheat, and he didn't stop him from sifting him either. He didn't call Satan off. He sent Satan. He allowed Satan to come and test him. And that's what the Lord's going to allow Satan to do, because the Lord controls Satan. The Lord controls everything on the planet, man. Satan doesn't have free will, and neither do we. Everything you do is from the will of the Heavenly Father. The scriptures go into plenty of accounts showing that men's goings are of the Lord. How can a man understand his own way? That's Proverbs 24:20. I think it's 20:24. Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to butcher that. So it's I think it's Proverbs 24:20. No, it's lucky. It's Proverbs 20:24. Yep, that's right. I just had it backwards. Yep. So going back over there, we're going to read that first account and what happened with Daniel, and then we're going to go into the second account and show you kind of what time period that was in. And then we're going to go into a little bit, a couple other accounts, and try to make them quick. So this is Daniel chapter 6, verse 18. Then the king went to his palace and passed the night fasting, right? So basically, when you go into Daniel, the sixth chapter, the first time Daniel was basically was in this situation, this king was King Darius, okay, which Cyrus basically gave him dominion of he gave him dominion of the land of the Chaldeans, which is going into the stronghold of Babylon. Okay, so this is really coming around the time, because when you go back a chapter, I want to add something to this. When you go back a chapter, Belshazzar had a feast, which was Nebuchadnezzar's son. Okay. And in this feast, that's when you hear about the handwriting on the wall. Daniel interpreted it that basically his kingdom would fall. Okay. His kingdom will fall and he will get put to death. And that happened literally the same day. Okay. So when you go to where Daniel is serving Darius, right? This is basically going into Darius the Mede. Okay. Medo-Persian Empire. Okay. This is going into that account in Daniel 9, where it kind of speaks about it in the first verse. But then there's another situation that he dealt with another king, and this same account happened. So going into this, going back to Daniel's in the lion's den, we can start at 18, or we can start at 18, where we was at. 17. So, and a stone was brought, and he laid upon the mount of the den, and the king sealed it with his own signet, and with the signet of his lords, the purpose might not be changed concerning Daniel. And that's kind of how always the heathens have done things. They make decrees, and they think that's just the final say so of us as Israel, and they've always done that, you know. And that's what they're trying to do with the MOTB. Okay, they're trying to basically mark us for whatever decision they make on us. They think that that's the all say, all be all for Israel. And it's never going to be like that, man. The Lord gets the final say so. So going into this, verse 18, then the king went to his palace and passed the night fasting. Neither were instruments of music brought before him, and his sleep went from him. So basically, he was fasting because, you know, he kind of was, you know, he was in a sense of fear, okay, because they knew how wise Daniel was, okay. Daniel was wise, man. So going into it, so when the sleep went from him, then the king arose very early in the morning and went in haste unto the den of the lions. Like he went over there, hurried to see if Daniel got eaten. Verse 20, and when he came to the den, he cried with a lamentable voice unto Daniel, and the king spake and said to Daniel, O Daniel, servant of the living power is thy power, talking about Yahawah, whom thou servest continually, able to deliver thee from the lions. Then Daniel said unto the king, O king, live forever. So basically, you know, he was saying, dang, how did he deliver you from these lions, man? You know? So basically that account, you know, was going into, you know, this situation when they made a decree that basically if you didn't serve their gods, then you were to be cast in the lion's den. Okay. So this is the first account of when he was cast into that den. Okay. And this time, you know, it was just overnight, because the second time he was in there way longer. So we're going to point that out. But first we're going to go right here. We're going to go to Daniel 9:1. And, you know, I'm not expecting a lot of people to watch this as much, you know, well, maybe, you know, depending on, because the last one you can't really hear me. Hopefully in this one, it's not making that, you know, that situation where it's just really distorted. You know, if it is, you know, whoever's watching Baba Kasha, you know, if you can just point it out, I'll go try to redo it another way. But it should be working a lot better now. I switched my internet up. So Daniel 9 verse 1, we went into Daniel. Going into this, in another lesson I did about, you know, 2 weeks ago almost, but we're just gonna read the first verse and kind of give you, this is basically around this time that Bel and the dragon happened. Okay. So it says the first year of Darius, the son of Ahasuerus. And when you look up that name, it's basically mentioning it's a title. That name is a title. So it's really speaking of three different people right here. But in this sense, this one's speaking of Cyrus, okay, King Cyrus, which was, the ruler of Persia at the time. Persia is, consists of 127 provinces. So whoever basically owned Persia owned those provinces. It's like down all the way down to Artaxerxes, like we talked about. Okay, in that lesson 2 weeks ago, if you haven't watched it, it's a pretty long lesson, but it's going into basically the abomination, the desolation, and what does that mean, and certain accounts during that causing that concerning that. But this is talking about Cyrus right now. Okay, that's the son. That's his son right here. So of the seed of the Medes, right, which is made king over the realm of the Chaldeans. So that account was going into basically Daniel in the lion's den right there. Okay, the first time. Okay, that was who he was dealing with. Now, when you go into Bel and the dragon, it's talking about a different time. Okay, it's a little bit after that. Okay, after Cyrus is put to death. Okay, so this is the second account of him getting thrown in the lion's den. Okay, so it says the king, and I'm going to go pull up for edification's sake this guy's name. It's Ostages, right? So this is like a little bit later after that. Okay, this is another account of kind of what was going on around that time. We're going to point them out. So Astasages was the last prominent king of the Medes. So first you had Darius, right? Well, this is going into the last prominent king of the Medes. So while Darius, and whatnot was happening with Belshazzar, after the Medo-Persian Empire took over the Assyrian Babylonian Empire, he was still in Babylon. Okay. And all the kings always found favor of him because he knew how to break the scriptures down, break down dreams, basically he had that mouthpiece, man. He knew how to, work his way into power. Daniel did through, of course, the spirit and power of Yahawashi. He was known as one of the wisest men in the whole city. And so this dude right here, Ostages, I think that's how you say his name, Astyages or something like that, was the last prominent king of the Medes, reigning from 585 to 550 BCE, with his capital at Ekbatana in present-day Iran. He was a son of Cyaxares, right? Which is basically, Cyaxares was Cyrus. That was Cyrus's son. That was another one of Cyrus's son, okay? Who basically ruled right after that, okay? And Astasages was the one who basically put Cyrus to death, okay? And we're going to show you the account of that. So, and noted for his marriage to a Lydian princess who was part of a peace arrangement that ended conflicts between the Medes and the Lydians, okay? So that was like kind of them, they made a peace treaty with that or whatever. So basically, who was Astasages to Cyrus, right? He was the last king of the Median Empire, according to Herodotus, right? Basically, Cyrus the Great was Astasages' grandson through his daughter Medine, but his relationship, his relationship is, a little bit more deeper after that. But basically, Astsaces, the son of Cyaxares' brother-in-law, the Lydian king Croesus, right? Became king after his father's death. Okay. So this is going into, hold on real quick. He had a dream, and he basically had Cyrus put to death. All right. So it says, according to the legend, the king of the Medes had a dream one night that one of his descendants would grow up to overthrow him. He immediately ordered that his grandson Cyrus be killed. Okay. Oh, okay. Well, actually, he didn't kill him. He secretly gave the baby to a shepherd to raise. So he wanted to kill him. But then, he died, and then Cyrus took over. Basically. Yep. That's right. Because it says gathering his fathers. Yep. Just to make sure we got that account right. So basically, Cyrus, this is time of Cyrus, like it was saying in Daniel 9. So that's where we're at right now in this situation. So Daniel conversed with the king and was honored above all his friends, right? And now the Babylonians, this is probably supposed to say Babylonians, had an idol called Baal, and there spent upon him every day 12 great measures of fine flour and 40 sheep and 6 vessels of wine, right? And the king worshipped it and went daily to adore it, but Daniel worshipped his own God. And the king said unto him, why doest not thou worship Baal? Okay. So basically, let me get right here real quick. So basically, yeah, that's right. So basically, I was looking at something else I wanted to add, but I'm gonna leave that out for a second. So now the Babylonians had an idol called Baal, and there was spent upon him every day 12 great measures of wine flour and 40 sheep and 6 vessels of wine. So they was given to this offering, like to this statue, a lot of stuff, man. Like, that's how they had a lot of money. And the king worshipped it and went daily to adore it. But Daniel worshipped his own power, talking about Yahawah. And the king said unto him, why doest thou worship Baal? Who answered and said, because I may not worship idols made with hands, but the living power, who have created the heaven and the earth and have sovereignty over all flesh. Right? Then the king said unto him, thinkest thou not that Baal is a living God? Seest thou not how much he eateth and drinketh every day? Then Daniel smiled and said, O king, be not deceived, For this is but clay within and brass without, and did never eat or drink anything, right? So he's basically telling them that, they worshiping a false god and whatnot, you know. So hold on. Let's see right here. I want to point out something. Come on. So basically, like I was saying, the account of Bel and the dragon is dealing with Cyrus the king. And then the account where Daniel is in the lion's den in Daniel 6 is talking about him under Darius. Okay. So the Bel and the dragon is basically an account that happened before the second time he was thrown in the lion's den. This is the first time he was thrown in the lion's den. That's what I wanted to point out to show you which one was first. So this is the first account of him being thrown in the lion's den through Cyrus the king. Okay. Over the Bel and this dragon. Okay. These two things that Babylon was worshiping at the time. So then Daniel smiled and said, this is the Medo-Persian Empire, like we said, because Cyrus was ruling that. So then Daniel smiled and said, "O king, be not deceived," right? Talking about that doesn't eat or drink anything. So the king was wroth and called his priests and said unto them, "If ye tell me not who this is that devoureth these expenses, ye shall die. But if ye can certify me that Bel devoureth them, then Daniel shall die. For he hath spoken blasphemy against Bel." And Daniel said unto the king, "Let it be according to thy word." Okay. So this is like we said, around in Daniel 9:1, he gave Darius that portion of so he gave him that portion of the Chaldeans, but which is the stronghold of Babylon, like we always talk about. But Cyrus still ruled all of Persia. So after this happened with this account with Cyrus, then he had to deal with the same thing with Darius the Mede. Okay. So basically his first test was harder than his second test, but it can be vice versa. Like I was saying earlier, sometimes your first test could be not as hard as your second test. So it can be, vice versa. But anyway, it says, "Now the priests of Bel were 70 beside their wives and children, and the king went with Daniel into the temple of Bel. So the Bel's priest said, Lo, we go out, but thou, O king, set on the meat and make ready the wine and shut the door fast and seal it with thine own signet. And tomorrow, when thou comest in, if thou findest not that Bel hath eaten up all, we will suffer death, or else Daniel that speaketh falsely against us." Right. So basically, that was the same thing that happened with him concerning Darius. When he had to deal with also with Nebuchadnezzar, with the whole thing with him interpreting the dream. If he couldn't interpret it, then he get put to death. Same way with the priests in that situation. And they little regarded it, and under the table they had made a private entrance, whereby they entered in continually and consumed those things. So they were basically sneaking in there and eating the food. Okay, so Daniel basically, this is what he did to basically catch them in a trap. Catch them in a trap. So when they were gone forth, the king set some meats before Bel. Now Daniel had commanded his servants to bring ashes, and those they strewed throughout all the temple in the presence of the king alone. When they went out and shut the door, they sealed it with the king's signet, and so departed. Verse 15, now the night came, the priests and their wives and children, as they were wont to do, they did eat and drink up all. So they went in there and basically went in there and ate all the offerings to make it seem like the statue ate it. But, you know, Daniel had put ashes on the ground with the king by itself to show them that, watch, when they come in here, you're going to see their footprints, basically. In the morning, betime, the king arose, Daniel with him, and the king said, Daniel, are the seals whole? And he said, yea, O king, they be whole. And as soon as he opened the door, the king looked upon the table and cried with a loud voice, great art thou, O Baal, and with thee is no deceit at all. Then laughed Daniel and held the king that he should not go in, and said, behold now the pavement, and mark well those footsteps are these. See, so he had the ashes on the ground where when they came in there, their footprints was going to be seen, and them going in there and eating all the offerings to make it seem like the statue did it. And the king said, I see the footsteps of men, women, and children. And then the king was angry, and he took the priests and their wives and children, who showed them the privy doors where they came in, and consumed such things as were upon the tables. So basically they went through like a back door. Okay. And Daniel knew where it was. So basically he went over there and put the ashes over there. So next time they seen him walking in there. So before the king slew them, he delivered Baal into Daniel's power, who destroyed him and his temple. And in that same place, there was a great dragon, right? So he killed all them, and Daniel was still left out there. And in that same place, there was a great dragon, which they of Babylon worshipped. And the king said unto Daniel, wilt thou also say that this is of brass? Lo, he liveth and eateth and drinketh. Thou cannot say that he is no living God, therefore worship him. Now, this wasn't talking about like an actual fire-breathing dragon or something. It could have been like a Komodo dragon or something. It could have been like, something just like a beast, So once he got rid of that first idol, they started worshiping this. So it says, and the king said unto Daniel, wilt thou say that this is of brass? Lo, he liveth and eateth and drinketh. Thou cannot say that he is no living power, therefore worship him. Then Daniel said unto the king, I will worship the Lord my power, for he is the living power. So he said, no, I'm not going to worship that either. But then he said, give me leave, O king, and I shall slay the dragon without sword or staff. The king said, I give thee leave. So Daniel said, I'll basically put this so-called God y'all worship to death, and I won't even have to slay it in a way that you think, basically. So 27, then Daniel took pitch and fat and hair and did seethe them together and made lumps thereof, right? So basically, he made something that it wasn't going to be contaminable. Like this dragon wasn't going to be able to, eat this and it go well for him. So this he put in the dragon's mouth, and the dragon burst in sunder. And Daniel said, lo, these are the gods ye worship, right? So he basically gave this thing, he like poisoned it damn near. Okay, fed it something it wasn't supposed to get fed, and then it got, it then died. Okay. So when they of Babylon heard that, they took great indignation and conspired against the king, saying, the king is become a Jew, and he have destroyed Baal, he have slain the dragon, and put the priest to death. Right? Hold on. Point this out. Oh, okay. Okay, like I was saying earlier, I was reading it wrong where it said where I said the account, like I said earlier, the account that he dealt with at first in Daniel 6, that's the first account that happened, and then this is the second one. That's what I was thinking. I was just reading the wrong thing or something. But yeah, basically this is like a continuation of that. So he dealt with Darius first in that situation where he was only cast in there one night, and then this is the second time where he was cast in, and he was in there for 6 days is what it's about to go into. Just like I was saying earlier, your trial that the Lord gives you, your first trial could be just for a night, but then the next trial you could have, it could be, a longer period of time, and you're gonna have to have more faith then. That's why we pray to the Lord for strength, because that's what you're gonna need in that day, because your tests are not gonna get easier, man. Like I was saying earlier, they're gonna get harder. That's what I was trying to say in my last lesson, but it's kind of early, so I'm kind of tired, but I didn't want to go without redoing this. So anyways, when Babylon heard that, they took great indignation and conspired against the king, saying the king has become a Jew, right? Because he was basically doing whatever Daniel was proving him wrong, and have destroyed Baal. He have slain the dragon and put the priest to death. So basically, he was like saying he become a Jew because he was judging them for their wickedness. So they came to the king and said, "Deliver us." And he wasn't actually a Jew. He was just saying like he's acting like him. He was still a heathen. So they came to the king and said, "Deliver us, Daniel, or else we will destroy thee and thine house." Verse 30. Now, when the king saw that they pressed him sore, being constrained, he delivered Daniel unto them, who cast him into the lions' den, where he was 6 days. See, so the last time he was only in there for a night, okay, but this time it was 6 days. And in the den there were 7 lions, and they had given them every day 2 carcasses and 2 sheeps, which then were not given to them to the intent they might devour Daniel. Okay, so they basically starved the lions so they would eat them. Now there was in Jewry a prophet called Habakkuk, who made pottage and had broken bread in a bowl, and was going into the field for to bring it to the reapers, right? He was out there, working in the field. We was in captivity at that time. And we know who Habakkuk is. There's a whole book going into Habakkuk. But the angel of the Lord said unto Habakkuk, "Go and carry the dinner that thou hast into Babylon unto Daniel, who was in the lion's den," right? And Habakkuk said, "Lord, I never saw Babylon, neither do I know where the den is." Then the angel of the Lord took him by the crown, right, by his head, and bare him by the hair of his head, and through the vehemency of his spirit set him in Babylon over the den. And when you look up that word vehemency, it means like angrily, like the Lord was angry at him because he questioned the Lord. Basically, the Lord told him to do something. He said, "Oh, I ain't never been over there. I don't know what's going on." So he, the angel of the Lord took his ass, grabbed him, and said, "Get your ass over there and give him this food." Basically, he was mad at him. That's what vehemency means. It means like angrily. Okay. We'll look it up again. I looked it up last time. And it basically means feeling or conviction, empathetic, great energy, vigor, or force, right? Furious, right? He was mad because that's why when the Lord tell you to do something, just don't be trying to mouth back or nothing. Just do that shit. The Lord mess around and grab your ass by the head. Okay? There's a lot of times the Lord was mad at the prophets and stuff. This is talking too much. So then the angel of the Lord took him by the crown, right? And then he put him over the den. And Habakkuk cried, saying, "O Daniel, Daniel, take the dinner which the Most High have sent thee." And Daniel said, "Thou hast remembered me, O power. Neither hast thou forsaken them that seek thee and love thee." And Daniel arose and did eat. And the angel of the Lord set Habakkuk in his own place again immediately. Upon the seventh day, the king went to bewail Daniel. And when he came to the den, he looked in, and behold, Daniel was sitting. Then cried the king with a loud voice, saying, Great art, Lord, power of Daniel. There is none else beside me. And he drew him out and cast those that were cause of his destruction, that were the cause of his destruction, into the den, and they were devoured in a moment before his face. So basically, that was the first. This is the second account of him dealing with the lion's den. As we said in the chapter 6, he kind of went through the same thing. So it's just a way to show you that, whatever we go through, even if it's a longer period of time, the Lord will take care of his people, man, especially his servants. And the same account happened with Elijah and the ravens, man. He sent ravens to feed him, okay, when he was out there in the wilderness. So this is Isaiah. We got to go to 65:13. Isaiah 65. Now, I mentioned a lot more in my last lesson, but I ain't going to. A lot of that stuff was off the spirit, and we'll go into it another time, kind of going a little bit of that. We went into a couple other things concerning some other things, but we'll go into those another day, Lord willing. So Isaiah 65:13, therefore thus saith the Lord Yahawashi, behold, my servant shall eat, but ye shall be hungry. Behold, my servant shall drink, but ye shall be thirsty. Behold, my servant shall rejoice, but ye shall be ashamed. Right? Behold, my servants will sing for joy of heart, but ye shall cry for sorrow of heart, and shall howl for vexation of spirit. So that's a account of showing that, even in very grievous times, the Lord's been there for his prophets, man. And so basically, going into it, it just kind of shows you the timeline of kind of how things happened to Daniel, and the conditions that he had to go through are kind of similar to ours. The Lord is going to put us through more difficult tests as we go along, into this truth. But he always going to take care of you. So you got to have that faith that, even if it looks like a grim situation, that the Lord's going to come for you, man. And so, I want to throw a little bit of history in that too. Because like it says, when you read at the beginning, it talks about basically Cyrus's grandfather wanted to have him put to death, but he was taken and risen up. And, this is around the time Daniel was carried into Babylon. So that's the account of the bell and the dragon. I did have a couple other things that I had concerning other stuff when I went into this last lesson, but it was just lagging so bad. So I just we'll have the spirit go into that stuff later. I got it kind of in my mind what I wanted to talk about. We was going to go into some other accounts concerning other things, but we'll get into it, Lord willing, sometime soon. So, Shalom to like the Israel, hopefully like the Israel, Hebrew Israelites, so-called Negro, Latinos, Native Americans, West Indians, Haitians, foreigners, like the other nations, scarecrows, folk ones on earth. Want to give all praise to Barak, Rawchaa. Double honors to the elders and apostles of great millstone. Let us all to this truth. Ball, peace and blessings to your elect. Lord willing, it was edifying, and we'll try to get back into some more accounts. Going into the women and the well, a couple other things, and then Lord willing, we can get into some end time topics, sometime soon. So, Kwame Yasharala, Shalom.